infrastructure as code, right? As I pointed out earlier, that it is difficult to manage, but there has to be some significant way as reason as to why I would be writing some more code for my application, right? For developers, they might be thinking that first I might have to write some code for my application. Well, we do that, right? We have to do that infrastructure as
Then
right.
probably
Write some
as I
unit tests
pointed out
cases
earlier,
that will
it is
that is
difficult to
going to
manage
test our code itself. So for the sake of sanity, we might actually write some test cases as well. But then you're told that okay, now you have to write some infrastructure code as well, right? You have to write code that handles and manages your infrastructure. At this point, you'll be like, are you serious? Like, why would I be writing so much code for a very small application or a very large scale application? uh, the reason is yes, this is really helpful, and this is where we'll see that why it really comes into aid for us. So as you can see on the screen, we have four big chunks, like where infrastructure as code really helps us. So first we see that okay, it helps us in managing complex infrastructure. So when we talk about managing complex infrastructure, let's talk about a scenario where in any cloud provider we have a very generic network layer, right? And this network layer can have many subnets in it, and these subnets can have like n number of virtual machines deployed to them. So if we go ahead and try to map out that which machine belongs to which subnet through the console itself, it can become very cumbersome. Not only that, like okay, you have created it once and things are going well, but consider a scenario where let's say your production virtual machine gets down, right? Something gets broken over there. How do you debug that, right? So that really become brings in more complexity to an already complex infrastructure. So I feel infrastructure as a code will really help you out to simplify at least the dependencies that exist in your system. Next, it follows a approach of creating once and using multiple times. So in service-based companies, right, it does happen that we get certain projects that are very similar in terms of architecture, right? We know that we just need some virtual machines. We have a clear set of guidelines for us as to how our network should look like, right? So at that point, it really doesn't makes a lot of sense if we just go ahead, like if we keep on following the same principles again and again and wasting months or weeks just to set up a similar thing that we have already done in past. Therefore, if you use infrastructure as a code, right, so you have already defined some architecture for yourself, you have your code ready with you. So the next thing that you have to do is just rerun it again and you will be ready for it. The next thing that we see is infrastructure as code makes developer more responsible for their work. uh, it can be a topic for discussion as to why it brings down the responsibility to the developers itself. But it is a notion, right? We always see that developers saying that it works on my machine, but it doesn't work on production or in pre-production, right? So that is what we have to realize, that it like these burdens cannot only be put onto operations teams, right, or people who are deploying to infrastructure. It also is the responsibility of the developer to see how his code actually performs in the production, right? So if we have infrastructure as a code, it really gives us the flexibility to give this power to developer so that he's able to work around with his own set of infrastructure if he wants. Why? Because he already has a set of clear clear set of code in front of him that he just has to run and probably deploy his application to that. So this brings more freedom and responsibility to a developer. The next thing that we see is building resilient infrastructure. So it so happens that you start with your production application, things are going fine, but what one day what happens is some thing happen that you weren't really expecting, and your production application goes down. For applications that are really not availability extensive, like let's say if you're watching YouTube or even Netflix, right? If their site goes down for half an hour or so, you won't be bothered that much because after all, you're just using it for entertainment. But talking about business applications, ad services, right? What if those services goes down? So it costs them millions of dollars to overcome that burden, and the complexity involved in these infrastructure is really high, right? So it's not just like that okay, you can pinpoint and find out the problem in itself. These different services follow a very complex microservice architecture or service architecture. So what really infrastructure as a code will help you is to follow a chaos engineering approach, right? So what chaos engineering approach tells us is that engineers just keep tinkering or playing around with the infrastructure that they already have, so as to make their infrastructure more resilient, so that they can cover up cases which are not so obvious in usual scenarios. And if you just think about it, if you were doing all this manually, it is very difficult for things to be managed in a good way. Therefore, if you're using infrastructure as a code, you can keep on testing in your production environments and keep changing things according to your wish, and you can test out different scenarios which will help you to build some your infrastructure as resilient and rigid. The next thing that we come up to as to what are different tools that we can use to write infrastructure as code, right? So on the left hand side, if you see, we have AWS Cloud Formation, GCP Deployment Manager, Azure Deployment Manager. So these tools are basically provide very native to these cloud platforms itself, right? So if you give them certain configurations, they are just going to create some resources or infrastructure that we want to be built on those particular cloud platforms. And on the extreme right side, if we see some tools like Ansible, Chef, and Puppet. These can perform multi-cloud resource creation, right? You can use these tools to manage some parts of your infrastructure on different cloud platforms, but these are again limited to very particular resources. Like for example, using Ansible, Chef, or Puppet, you might be able to just provision certain virtual machines, but not really use the core services that a cloud provider can provide us. Then we have Terraform. So Terraform, why Terraform has been gaining so much traction for the last few years is because it is sort of a union of these two different extremes of approach. So Terraform allows us to provision infrastructure in a multi-cloud platform, and not only infrastructure, it also helps us to provision services for ourselves. So whatever you go ahead and do in your console, it will help you out to do using infrastructure as a code. So, does anyone have any doubts regarding this? Cool. Since I'm having some silence, so I'll expect that things are clear up till now. Awesome. Now let's move on to Terraform itself. Why we are here, right? So, in a very simple language, Terraform is just a service or an infrastructure provisioning tool that was developed by HashiCorp. So it not only deals with major cloud providers, but it also gives you the power to go ahead with your own bare metal infrastructure if you have the facility, or very different service providers. It uses HashiCorp configuration language to create its configurations, so as to create your infrastructure. For better clarity, let's just look at this diagram as to what is happening over here. So when we talked about configurations, right? So the work of a engineer at this point would be to write some configurations. Obviously, before writing these configuration, you need to have a picture in your mind as to what you want to develop, right? So once you have this very clear picture in your mind as to what you will be developing, you write out some configurations for yourself and you just feed it to Terraform. Now, it is the job of the Terraform to identify what resources it will be creating and how it will be managing the dependencies among all these resources. So now over here we have certain points as to why we should be using Terraform, right? So we really can't just say that okay, I am able to write certain scripts to create my infrastructure on different cloud plan. Like I can do that using different SDKs that these cloud providers provide us. I can use some bash scripts if I want. But why Terraform, right? So the first thing that we see is it helps us provision multi-cloud services. As already discussed, we have a huge community base. Like the cloud providers themselves are, writing code that can help developers to provision certain infrastructure and services on their clouds. The next that we see is a unified state management. So when we talk about unified state management, what Terraform does is it has all the resources that we want to develop in a single state, right? So it's not really like that okay, if I am creating some resources in AWS, I will keep my state different, and if I am creating some resources in Heroku or DigitalOcean, I will keep that separate. No. In order to manage all the dependencies that are there in our complex architecture, we need a unified state management tool. So this is what really Terraform also helps us, right? So we can use Terraform to manage our states. The next thing that we see is dependency management. So this has a very it comes with a caveat with it, right? So if we talk about resources that are created in a particular cloud environment, let's say if you are going just ahead with GCP and you're creating all your resources in GCP, and you are just creating all your resources in AWS, then the developers who have built the dependence like modules for these cloud platforms, they will have all obviously kept in mind that how multiple resources are dependent on each other. But this really falls apart when we talk about cross cloud platforms, like multi cloud platforms, because obviously the people in AWS really don't know that how their resources will be dependent on resources on GCP, right? But in that case, Terraform also provides us to add certain explicitly adding context to our resources, wherein we can tell that okay, before creating this resource in AWS, you have to create a resource in GCP. So if we can, if we want, we can tell that to Terraform that okay, we can also intervene the some sort of dependency in the system as well. The next great thing that Terraform helps us is to create, update, and delete. Uh, Creating your resources or services is really not a big task, rather than updating and deleting those resources are, right? Because it's not always like that. That you go ahead and just that what all resources you need to delete or update. So this is where Terraform really shines out, right? So if you have an already existing infrastructure, what you can do is, if you are expecting that okay, my website or my application is going to expect this much traffic, probably you might need to update your virtual machines, right? So you can just change some configurations in your Terraform, and that can be done for you. Same goes for delete, right? Let's say you got a handover, certain a project from your cloud platform to your client's account, right? So usually what you need to do is delete all that infrastructure. But if they are not bound together, right, there are chances as to you might just leave on certain instances, certain resources running in the background, and you don't even realize up till a later point in time when you already have exhausted a lot of money in that, right? The next thing that we come is reusability or reusable modules. So it's just as we have modules or packages or modules or packages in normal programming languages. Terraform also comes up with the similar approach of creating modules uh, that can be reused. So let's say, as I've already discussed, that you had created a set of infrastructure for yourselves, right? So you may come in a scenario where you don't want to use the exact infrastructure, but you have already worked on a part that can be reused throughout multiple projects. So this is also where Terraform can really help you out. So it can help you build that complex reusable structure that you can use throughout multiple projects. And these are the certain highlighted points that it always like it also comes up with itself, right? So it has a good community support, right? It like if you go ahead and try to do some research on your own, you find that okay, the communities are developing and people are adopting this thing very rapidly. It has a very well documented, well drafted documentation. So when you pick up a tool, your main intention is that whether we will be finding a proper documentation for all the resources that we are going to create. So I feel once you get hang of how to use Terraform, the documentation is fairly simple, and people have been putting a lot of effort as to be very clear and concise as to what goes into their documentation, and even going ahead and giving out some examples to us. And the next point is it's very easy and easy to read and learn, right? So it's not really complicated as a programming language can be, but it follows a very similar JSON sort of a architecture, like not exactly JSON, but a similar thing, sort of a deal is over there as well. And the next thing that we see is it's fail safe. So I remember the point that I talked about, that okay, I can create my resources using certain bash scripts or SDKs. But what if after a certain point your bash scripts fail due to certain reason? Then there is no point that that at what point did your infrastructure creation process broke down. So Terraform also gives you this fail safe mechanism as to if a process gets broken, you can just fix it and it will start continue from the same point onwards. Does anyone have any doubts over here? I feel this cat could have been a lot to take in, but if anyone has any doubts, feel free to ask. I'll just wait for 2 3 seconds. Awesome.
Yeah, I think there are some questions in the chat.
uh, then I'll have to just give me a second. Yeah. So we are just going to take like 2 to 3 minutes to answer these questions. Yes, so if you're talking about serverless options, yes, if you want, you can create your AWS Lambda functions in using Terraform. You can create cloud functions in GCP. So if a service is provided by a cloud platform, and if they have written out these configurations for in their documentation, then all the resources you can create. And personally, I have seen they have mentioned cloud functions for GCP and Lambda functions for AWS. The next question is, for multi-cloud platforms, in the pre not really, right? So as I've told you that even if we have our infrastructure running in one cloud platform, Terraform will give us the facility to build resilient infrastructure over the time, right? It will give you the opportunity to update your infrastructure without breaking things, as we know, right? So because Terraform already knows that what thing depends on other in a similar cloud platform if you're talking about, right? So in those cases, obviously Terraform would be a good help, even if you're just focusing on one cloud platform. The next question is cool. I think we're done with the questions for now, so I'll just move forward. Indradeep, was I clear? Like, do you have any more doubts after that?
Uh,
Sorry, I didn't
yes,
catch.
like I'm clear about the first question, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. Okay. So I still have a bit doubt of the second question. Like I'm not asking specifically about like the Lambda functions and the stuff like that. I'm asking about auto scalability. So like when we know that the traffic is going to increase. So you mentioned that we can update using the Terraform update option. So now my question is, since if we have chosen auto scalability, then what role would Terraform play here if it scales automatically?
Awesome. So imagine you have an autoscaler for your virtual machines, right? So what autoscaler would do, it will keep on adding more virtual machines to your system, right? Now imagine that your current load does not need some horizontal scaling, but it needs vertical scaling, right? So you need to increase the memory of your virtual machines. You need to increase the CPU utilization. You got to change out the disks that you are using. You need to change. in which network those virtual machines should be provisioned into, right? So these are the sort of updations that I'm talking about. Obviously, if we follow Terraform, you can provision autoscalers as well, right? So if, for example, you have a range defined for yourselves that okay, I just need to virtual machines created between the range of 3 to 5, like they should not exceed replication count of 5. But let's say in future you go ahead and say that okay, no, now I need 10. So probably you can just update these configurations in your Terraform configurations itself, rather than going to the console and going through that complex task. Cool.
Okay, but when auto scaling is chosen,
All right.
then I won't have to do much here, because we have already chosen auto scaling, like in the platform itself. So I
Yeah.
think in that case, Terraform may not have to do anything. Like the main service provider will do the required stuff, I think.
But like if you're just talking about a very simplistic architecture as to where you only have one autoscaler, or you're just working in one environment, like let's say you just need a set of infrastructure for your production, that is fine. Like probably if you want to go ahead with it. But let's say if you were running different environments for yourself, right? You just did not have one production environment, but you rather had four, like development, staging, QA, and production, and you needed a similar replication of these let's say architecture designs, then obviously you should go ahead with an infrastructure as a code. I'm not saying like if you're going with cloud, maybe you might be using cloud formation, right? That's also fine. Like if it helps you in that way, that's cool. But Terraform itself will give you a sense of reusability and more modularity over a longer period of time, right? So as I've already discussed, that it makes managing complex infrastructure a bit more easier. So if you are talking about an infrastructure that is fairly simple for you and you think that you can handle it on your own, probably go ahead with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So then, the next thing that we'll be moving on to is HashiCorp configuration language, right? So Terraform generically, like natively uses this configuration language. Uh, it is very human and machine friendly, right? So it's not very difficult for humans to read it, and it's not really difficult for machines to understand because of how simple the configuration itself has been laid out. So let's just discuss about the key features of HCL. So HCL usually provides us with a block, and any block uses some key value pairs. So here, as we can see, we have defined a block over here, right? So anything between two curly braces, that turns out to be a block. And if you want to specify certain attributes, those go ahead with the keys, and those attributes can be assigned certain values, which, as you can see in the diagram, is 4. The next thing that we see is a very generic to programming languages as to adding comments, right? So go ahead and add a hash to write out your comments. Now HashiCorp language configuration language provides us with multiple types, right? So it gives us the ability to have strings, objects, lists, maps, and tuples. So if you can see over here, you'll see that we have defined a object which has certain keys and values. So this is how we can like if you see this section over here, uh, oops, this section over here, it just defines your types, and if you see over here, you can see that how an object can be instantiated from it. It also gives us the ability to have multi-line strings. So if you want if you have a variable or a placeholder and it needs some multi-line strings, as to if like over here I have a random string, but it can be your bash script as well, right? So probably you can go ahead and do that as well. So these were the very basic key features of HCL, right? So that one should know that before they move forward with this. Cool. So the next thing that we have is our variables. So just like in any programming language, variables serve the purpose of some placeholders, so that you don't really have to add hard coded strings, objects, or lists. You can just define one variable and that can be used throughout your Terraform configuration. Usually, it is a good practice to store your variables in variables.tf file. So at any point, if you feel that you're not able to understand certain things, just please wait a bit more, because in the end we have a demo wherein we would be making out a project and see how it really works. So this is how it really goes. Like you store all your variables in a variables.tf file. As said before, the variables can also have the similar type structure, right? As defined in this figure. Given below is a link if later on someone wants to go ahead and dig more into how we can use variable or what variables are, we can go ahead with that. So this is a very classic example of using a variable, right? So here what I've done is I have defined a variable compute engine params. So this basically does is I can just define some of my values in this structure. Like if I want, I can declare my machine type, in which zone I want that to happen. If I want to use any snapshots, so all these values I can provide to a variable, and I can use it throughout my project, so that we don't get into a problem where there are some spelling mistakes and that causes a blunder for us. So how would you supply values to your variables? Here are the two options, right? There's this third option that we will be discussing a little later when we talk about modules. But these are the two key things that you can use to define values to the variables. So when you are running the Terraform command, you can just have it as a command line argument that can source the variables, and it is actually a better practice to have these variables, the values of these variables defined in a terraform.tfvars file, right? This is an experimental a feature, right? So at certain instances, there something like that may happen, that you may provide a wrong name to your resource. For example, in GCP, when I talk about when you're naming your subnets, you really can't have underscores in that, right? So and you really want your name to be defined to a particular length. So Terraform also provides this variable validation, which we can use in our projects as well. Moving forward to what an output value is. So as you can see, it's just your average return values, right? So following the same principles that we have in functions, we call a function and we get some values out of it so that it can be reused throughout different projects, right? So there is no complexity involved over here. It's fairly simple. You just create some resources, get some information that you need, and just pass it on to different modules that you would later like to use. This is how output block looks like, right? So we have output as an identifier, and we just name the name provide a name to the output that we want to use probably later on in our project. So if we still had a bit more doubt as to what outputs are, so here is a very simple example, right? So here, if we can see that we provide like we have some Terraform configuration that just creates an AW VPC or a subnet, right? And we have created a reusable module, right? So we are not writing our code again and again as to create these resources. We have just created a reusable module for ourselves, to which we provide certain values. Now, obviously, when these resources are created, it gives us certain values, right? For example, it will give us the subnet ID, it will give us the VPC ID. These values can be later reused or can be used when we are trying to create EC2 instances or any other surface that are dependent on a subnet or a VPC. So we can take these value from from our configuration that created the network resources and push it to the Terraform configuration, which creates the EC2 instances or any other service that. The next thing that we talk about is local variables. So it's fairly like relatively simple to understand this as well, as uh, these can be considered analogous to how we have local variables in functions rather than having global variables. So in the similar fashion, we can define some local variables that are going to be particular to a particular module that we will be creating. So as you can see, it's fairly simple. You just need to use a locals block, and you can define what key should be provided which value. And over here, it's also a classic example of how you can use outputs, right? So as defined earlier, that we can use the VPC IDs uh, from which was created from a module, and just use it in a different module altogether, right? So this is how we can use a local. So since we have, like in this, we have declared VPC ID and subnet ID. Now we are going to use it in a very different module or a different resource to get the values that we want. The next thing are resources. Well, basically, resources are the building blocks of any Terraform configuration. So yeah, so anything that you want to create, whether it is a service, infrastructure, resource that bring boils down to being a resource in Terraform configuration. So this is what our resource block looks like, as you would have already seen, right? So we have a resource identifier. We point out that which resource we want to create. For example, in this case, we are using AWS instance, uh, and you provide a reference name to it. This is not the name that gets assigned to the resources when it is created in the cloud platform, but rather it is used by Terraform to internally manage its state. And a resource has its block, and every resource has certain key values, predefined key value pairs, right? So when we talk about AWS instance, it already has been defined by the developers who created this module for us to, okay, add AMI for a particular machine, add a instance type or a machine type for your machines. Do you want monitoring or not? So on and so forth. There are a lot of variables that can be managed over here, that you can obviously tune according to your need. The next we come to the, I feel the biggest benefit of Terraform itself is the modules. So module is basically a container of multiple resources that can be used together, right? So if you had let's say a collection of multiple resources, as we discussed about before, that you had a compute instance, you had a VPC, you had a subnet, you had certain static addresses, you can use that, when you club them all together, it forms a module for us. So each Terraform configuration, when we write, has a root module, right? So you don't really go ahead and write root module. That's how the Terraform understands it, that if you have certain configuration inside a folder, that will act as a root module. Now this root module, as told earlier, can have resources, it can have multiple variables, it can have outputs, it can be using different child modules if they want to. And if you go ahead and use a child module, then let's say if you have worked on something that can be used, probably you can just go ahead and provide the source of that module as to where that module exists. It can be a Terraform module registry, which Terraform has just come up with now, and you can provide a reference to your probably a commit in your GitHub repository, and it will just source the module from that. uh, in a module we have arguments, right? Same as when we have a function call, we provide it certain arguments, right? So here we define certain arguments that we want to be passed to a module, and then we assign certain values to it. Does anyone have any doubts up till this point? I'll just go ahead and see. Cool. Is anyone having any doubts up till this point, like about resources or modules or anything that we've discussed before? Okay, cool.
I
Then
mean,
we'll
so far so good.
awesome. then we'll move forward. Now let's come to the part where we talk about providers, right? So we have been going through this discussion that we are going to create a resource in this cloud platform. We are going to have some configurations for us, but how are these configurations really being created? Just give me a sec, please. Right. So if you remember this diagram wherein we talked about that, okay, you have some configurations and you give it out to Terraform, which is going to create some resources in all these cloud platforms if you want it, right? So this like the providers are basically the interface that really helps you out to, that takes in your configurations, and it interacts with different APIs of the cloud providers and create resources for you. So it's really not a black box, but it is an abstraction that is provided by different cloud providers for you, so that it makes your developer experience very like fluid. Yeah. So as discussed, providers helps us understand API interaction and expose resources, right? So it can be and when we talked about, it can be an infrastructure as a service resources. It can be platform as a service resource, or it can be software as a service resource. So really, you really are not, confined to a sphere where you are just, making things on a particular on just cloud platforms. Rather, you can, expand your perspective a bit more and target different cloud service providers, like different service providers also. uh, this is some details about that, even though we have certain cloud providers that are providing their providers to us, but Terraform also gives you the facility to write your own providers. So that is how it is able to maintain this reusability sort of a thing for itself, right? Basically, provider will tell us how different resources behave with each other, and how what are resources we can have in a particular cloud provider. So this is how a block of provider looks like. So this is not the whole configuration of a provider, but imagine, let's say, how we mention certain dependencies in package.json, or what do we call that? Yeah, we manage, like we mentioned some dependencies in a configuration file as to package.json. Similarly, we can mention these providers in our providers.tf file. All right. Uh, so now it's time for the demo. Cool. Up until this point, did anyone have any questions? Because I have tried to cover some basic essential parts of the Terraform that you guys can go ahead and, if you want, you can do stuff on your own. But there are obviously a certain advanced section to this as well, which I'll be linking to the end of the in the end of the demo. But up until this point, does anyone have any more doubts or any random questions? I think they are.
Yeah, I do have a question regarding providers. So these are
Yeah,
for Auth0, we have different providers like Google, Twitter, and
exactly.
it's works similar like that, right? So
Uh, yes, we can say that.
okay. So is there any list of providers, or we can configure any of the provider?
So I think I should just go ahead with this link. Just give me a second. Give it beforehand, but anyways. So these are all the providers that we have available for Terraform, right? So here, if we talk about, it's not really the job of the Terraform to build these providers, but rather it becomes the job of these cloud providers to write out those providers for you. So if the cloud providers really want that them to be used, like if the cloud providers want you to be using their cloud platform, then probably they would be writing certain cloud providers for you. So as Sarah pointed out, that yeah, it can be thought of as a OAuth sort of a scenario where OAuth can be linked to different cloud identity providers.
Okay, Thank you.
Cool. So a bit, I won't be giving like expecting you guys to follow along, but these are so. I know we can have an audience where who works with GCP and who has worked with AWS and probably some other cloud provider. But for the sake of simplicity and how I am used to things, I'm just going to create something that is very common across multiple cloud providers, right? So in this case, I'll be just creating some infrastructure in GCP. Now, these are the certain prerequisites that we need, right? So we need to download the Terraform binary, right? So here, as you can see in this file, it is almost like available for every operating system out there. And then we, for our sake, we'll have to download Cloud SDK as well. It's not really hard requirement, but yeah, it helps me out to just communicate with the resources that I have in my cloud to use this SDK. And it's not even the exact SDK; it's just that I can use the command line tool for one or two things. Just a sec. Awesome. So in this, we will be, creating this architecture for ourselves. So we are going to have a virtual private cloud. Uh, for those of you who don't know what a VPC is, just imagine you have a huge building for yourself, right? And that basically confines you as a VPC. And when we talk about subnets, those can be imagined as rooms in that big building, right? In which you're in every room where your probably resources can reside in. Cool. Then you have a certain cloud firewall rules, right? So it's not always that you expose your virtual machines to like the ports of your virtual machines to internet, right? So you need to confine that as well. So here we are going to have uh, some firewall rules for ourselves, and we're just going to create a compute like a virtual machine for ourselves, and just going to assign a static IP address, not an ephemeral one, which automatically gets assigned to a machine, but a static IP address, so that even when our machine restarts, we don't lose the IP that has been assigned to our machine. Uh, cool. Just give me a sec. Yeah. So the next thing, we move on to how, like, what process is generally involved in creating these resources. It's Terraform init, Terraform plan, and Terraform apply. Uh, Next, I am going to move on to the different configurations that we have. Then probably we can follow this process to see how it fits into our developer cycle. So uh, I hope you guys can see my code editor. Anyone can
Yep.
confirm?
Yeah.
Awesome. So this generally has all the things that we have discussed throughout this talk, right? So uh, before like we start designing us writing code for ourselves, this always a step involved of designing our solution first, right? So as we have discussed that since we have a clear idea as to what we are going to design, we know as to what resources we will be using, right? And once we have an idea of that, probably we know that what all variables we are going to use. So we have a file called variables.tf, right? So if we just focus on this part, right? So here we have defined a GCP project variable for us that I am going to use throughout the project, throughout this depot, right? If you were, talking about AWS, probably you could have, uh, declared a variable for resource groups, right? Which somehow binds all your resources into a group. So that is how you can define your variables that you want. Really, I want that. Okay, I need to restrict my resources to a particular region. So I have defined a variable for that as well, so that I really don't have to keep on adding Australia Southeast one again and again. And same goes for the concept of defining a zone, right? So in a region, in a particular zone, this is where I want my machines to go in. And then we have certain technical things, if we want, we can mention over here, like we have a machine type, right? So if we want, we can define a variable for us as well. So as you can see that I have already defined some default values. Like, this is as simple as it gets. This is what a variable look like. And probably if you want, you can define some default values as well, so that you really don't have to source them from anywhere. Because if you are clear about things that, okay, this is the project I'm going to use, or this is the account that I'm going to use, then why not just go ahead and set it as a default. But for circumstances where you're not really sure as to what the value of this resource is going to be, like it might change in the future, it can be sourced from a module, then in those circumstances we can obviously leave it out just like that. So I'm just gonna, like, coming to the Terraform init part, right? So when we run, I think because this is the right time, I think that a Terraform init should be introduced to you. So what Terraform init does is it finds out the dependencies that you have in your system and it downloads the providers. So as discussed before, here I have a provider for myself, right? So I have specified that, okay, this is a Google provider, and this is where my service account is kept, and this is the project that I'm going to use. If you were using AWS provider, you probably would have needed to add your access key and your secret key as well, right? So here I have explicitly mentioned it over here that, okay, this is where my credentials are kept, and same goes for the access keys as well. It is not fairly a good practice to just have your dependencies lying out here. And Terraform also provides a facility to source these variables from the environment variables. So it's like, for the sake of the demo, I've kept it this way so that it's easier for the beginners to understand. Right. So let's just start with Terraform init. So this usually takes a bit more time. That is why I've started this process over here. And now I'm going to move on to how we can, assign different values to different variables. So as we've discussed that we can, specify a terraform.tf vars file, right? And here I just simply went ahead and I simply have the name of my variable and the value that I want it to be assigned. The next thing, let's move on to the resources themselves. So as you can see, I have these 5 resource sets for myself, right? So I've just divided it into different section as to how, like, just to be clear about things, right? Because let's say if I'm creating a static address, I want my resource to be defined over here. So a question I got, I got a bit while back, was that how does Terraform know that it has to create a static address? So for those of you who don't understand, when the provider sees that, okay, this is the name of the resources I need to create, it obviously has been coded at the backend that you have to create these resources. So over here, we are just going to create compute address for ourselves. The next thing we have is we are going to define a base network for ourselves. So as we have seen in our diagram, right? So we had a VPC defined for ourselves. So we are just going to assign it a name, and since it's a custom VPC, we are not going to go ahead and create like subnets for it on its own, because GCP gives us this facility that, okay, if we would have enabled that, it would have created a subnet in all of the regions that are available in a VPC. Same goes for the AWS as well, right? So you will be following a similar sort of guideline, right, as to what resource you want to create. Over here, then I'm going to define a subnet for myself. A very similar fashion of assigning static values to it. Here I've assigned a sub name, the CIDR range that I want, and uh, classical use of how can use variables, to source some values. We can also use values that are created in different resources and just have them sourced over here. So as you can see that I had a compute network resource created for myself, and now I want the name of that resource to be passed into this new subnet that I'm going to create. So this is where I can do that. uh, does anyone have any doubts up till this point? Because then I move on to making certain instances. I'll just check out the chat.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions. If you can just address.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Surinder, the file structure is not really fixed. If I would have wanted, I could have had all the things that I've broken down into different files. I could have just have in one file, because Terraform really doesn't care as to the name of the file, but rather it just wants that it just needs the resources it has. So if I would have had added all this in a single file, let's say main.tf, it would have worked for us, because Terraform then would have parsed through all the files that exist in my system, and then it passes through the resources that are involved in my system.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
What is the best way to add sensitive data to the configuration? Yeah, so there are a couple of I am answering Krishnan Seni's here. So, what is the best way to add sensitive data in configs? Uh, you can use different key management stores, right? So for AWS, for GCP, I know KMS is a thing. Terraform itself has a service called Vault, which can be used to encrypt your sensitive data, and then that encrypted values can be mentioned in your configurations. Like for example, I could have just had a variable called password, and I could have assigned a encrypted value to it, so it really would not have harmed me, right? So that is something that I can use for sensitive data.
And
Can
I believe, like, based on the point of execution, like from where you are trying to execute the script, uh, the provider, it will be provider's responsibility to provide you with a feature to have certain configuration in place. Like if you are trying to run it from, let's say, something like GitHub, then maybe GitHub Secrets would be the choice, the tool of choice for this. If it is on, let's say, Heroku, then Heroku tokens would be there, or wherever it is supposed to be there. So
okay,
if you are like, if you're in a public domain or in a non-specific setup, then yeah, HashiCorp Vault would be a very decent choice as well.
yeah, like exactly. If we are talking about in those terms, then obviously, uh, as I've discussed, that okay, we have some service keys as well, like, or you can have certain different tokens as well. Then probably it's best to have that values assigned at the runtime, or probably just not committing these files that you have. Like if you want, yeah, that is the best way you could have possibly do that. But yeah, Vault is another way to do that. And another thing is that can Ansible be used for that? So sorry Christian, I won't be able to answer that question for you, because I have not worked extensive, like not worked at all with Ansible, but I have read certain like certain articles, or seen some videos that do talk about that how we can integrate our Ansible with Terraform, right? So probably you can use Terraform for your infrastructure creation or provision of infrastructure, and then you can use Ansible for your configuration management, as to having a clear set of software installed on that system. uh, cool. Let's move forward. Awesome. uh, So if let's move on to the instances then. Now that we have discussed about how we can have a network for ourselves, right? The next thing is to provision any sort of a service or a resource that we want. Here I am just focusing on a virtual machine. It could have been your database, or it could have been your cloud functions, any sort of a service that you can provide, right? So what this virtual machine will have is basically it is going to set up a very simple Nginx server for us, right? And as the same process we have followed before, we are just going to assign some basic values. Also, one more thing to note over here is that we can have certain blocks inside our resources as well, right? So as we have discussed that object is a type that can be used throughout our configurations. So here we have assigned an init params object which can be given out certain values. And here comes the part of taking values from different resources and referencing them in your existing resources as well. There is one more thing called data sources. So data sources are really not a big of a deal, but it's just that sometimes in spite of just having values copy pasted from your cloud providers, let's say my operating system has a particular name in my particular cloud provider, right? So to keep it in sync with the cloud provider's requirement, I can just have a data source and it automatically manages what name it actually needs. Cool. So I think we have covered everything. Yeah, this very small thing, right? So there's this resource called random ID. uh, for example, imagine like if I would not have had a random ID, then probably I would not have been able to clearly identify as to which resource is connected to each other. So if you would have seen over here, to each of these names I have appended a random ID. This will be general for all the resources that I create. This is basically done for me to uniquely identify that okay, this is the random ID that all that will be common amongst all the resources that I create. Awesome. Yeah. So I think we should move on to the next section. So planning Terraform plan. So I'm going to run that command for you. Awesome. So as you can see, since I really don't have a service account.json file in my folder, so Terraform threw me a error. So the role of Terraform plan is basically to go through all the resources and see that what resources are available to us and what resources are not, and accordingly it throws us an error. So as you can see, I don't really have a service account.json file with us over here. So the next thing I'm going to do is, go ahead and create a service account for myself. It could have been a fairly simple, access key in case of AWS. Or if you're talking about if someone is familiar with Azure, if you would have, logged in with your credentials in Azure CLI, Terraform would have picked it up on its own.
And Abhijit, if there is something like an SSH key required, that would also go in a similar manner?
Yes. So we can specify the address to the key, right? And it is just going to use that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So first I'm going to create a service account for myself, right? So in GCP, you can go ahead and follow this fashion of creating a service account, right?
And this is just to update people who are just not familiar with GCP. Service accounts are just the accounts which we can use in a very similar manner, the way we would use API keys, ID, and secret like in AWS. So this is just a representation of a user, but in an entirely programmatical manner.
Yeah. Sorry for not making that clear, but yeah, this is just going to identify as to what account or which person is going to interact with your cloud platform. So I've already created a service account for myself, that is DevTalks. The rest of the appended value is default to GCP, and it handles it on its own, right? As you've seen that when I was going to create a service account, it asked for a service account key. So you can handle that as well. The next task, what I'm going to do is just download a service. Like since I've created a service account for myself, I can now download some keys from the cloud providers that I will be, giving out to Terraform. So this thing is particular to GCP, but obviously AWS has its own set of features where it can, download the access keys and all. Cool. So I'm not really going to yeah. Anyways, so this is basically my service account, like my service account key. Uh, Now let's.
Make sure you delete that key afterwards.
Yeah, I'm going to delete that project here. Don't worry. Anyways, cool. So we have Terraform plan over here, right? So now we see that it went ahead with all the resources that we want to create, right? And it automatically tells us that what needs to be added. So it already has identified that, okay, since no existing infrastructure is in my repository, I'm going to create these things. So it is going to create a compute address for myself. It is going to create a firewall for me. It is going to create a compute instance for me, and so on and so forth. So if we go ahead and see right now that I really don't have any virtual machines defined right over here, and neither I have. So these are my default ones. Yeah. So neither I have any particular VPC assigned to that particular project, right? So now let's follow on to the next step in the process. Like after you have initialized your project, you have planned out that how your things are going to be arranged. The next thing that comes into picture is Terraform apply. So even at the stage of planning, at least in current versions of Terraform, it really doesn't know. Like sometimes it happens, just sometimes, that it doesn't really know that there can be an existing resource in the infrastructure if it is not registered in our state, right? So probably these guys are working over it, but yeah, it does happen sometimes, and that can be remediated very easily. But the apply amount really just goes ahead and checks that whether our plan was correct. And now when we just type yes, it will just start the process of creating these resources for us. It's going to just take a minute or so. So let me just get back to my slides and see if I have anything left. Oh no. Cool. So let's just go through this process as in where it is going to create some resources for us. In the meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, they can ask. Uh,
I think there are a few questions in the chat. I'm not sure if those are
Surendra, I hope I had answered your question, right? And Krishnan as well.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Cool. Guys, if you have any more questions, you can probably ask it right now. It take a minute or so. Awesome. Cool. So as we can see that all these resources have been created for us, right? And as we have talked about, even how we can use outputs. So I think this is the best time to tell you that how outputs can be used. So for example, let's say if you needed some values that you wanted to straight away use, so probably you can just have this very simple block for yourself, wherein you define that I want the IP address of the that is assigned to my virtual machine. And if you see over here, this is the IP address that is going to be used. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let me get to work. Yeah. So if we now see that we have a Nginx server running for us in that particular virtual machine, and if we refresh this, we should see that we have gotten a base network for ourselves, right? Uh, and if we go and we have an external IP address associated with the which we wanted to create, and the next thing is the virtual machine itself, right? So if I just go ahead and see that, yeah. So these are all the resources that have been created for me, including this static address, which I can just reuse again and again. Uh,
Okay, this looks awesome.
yeah, and the next thing, a bit more to that. If you really want to see the outputs that you have for yourselves, you can just try Terraform outputs, and it will show you all the outputs. Now the next thing, really cool thing about how we can see the dependency management in Terraform is, having we have this Terraform graph command. So it just basically creates a graph for us. I'll just transform this thing into a SVG so that it's more visually appealing for us. But if you straight away go ahead and see that uh, these are all the resources that have been created and how they are dependent on each other, right? So we see that the compute address is provided dependent on Google provider, so on and so forth. But if you want a visual representation of that, you can just go ahead and look at that as well. So over here, we get how the state has been managed by the Terraform, right? As to which resource depends on which resource. Uh, I know it is a bit clumsy, but there are some tools out there which, like for example, Blast Radius is a very good tool that can help you visualize this in a better way and probably help you debug your infrastructure as a whole, right? So, uh, cool.
And just one small thing, Abhishek, can you open the GCP console, please?
Uh,
Yeah, so we have the VM here, and it is supposed to, we can actually log in it using SSH key. So when this is created, where is the SSH key? So is it
Yeah.
something we can access?
So GCP has, yeah. So I'll talk about AWS just after that. But GCP follows a very cool concept of identity aware proxy. So if we have a service account registered in a for a particular project, then we really don't need SSH keys for ourselves. Like we can just have G Cloud CLI on our systems, and we can just SSH directly to those. Now talking about stuff where we need SSH keys, right? So in AWS, it really gives us the ability to create keys, right? So it can probably take up the RSA public key of your local system and configure your virtual machines for your system to be SSH into, or it also creates some key pairs for you. If you want, I can just send out the links for the AWS providers. Like if you go through them, you will get to know that this is a very simple process that can be followed. Uh,
Okay, and like maybe like yes, probably it doesn't generate the SSH key by default, but is there a provision to allow that to happen? I don't know. I'm just thinking about
Yes,
okay.
we can obviously do that. Like, I'll have to dig a bit more into this. Like, so if you
Sure.
go ahead,
I just want to like if it is possible or not. But yeah,
yeah, I think you just pointed out a cool thing, right? So, if you see, this is how basically a Google Compute instance documentation look like. So they usually give you how you should be using this resource, and they have all the facilities or the functionalities that we can get from these, right? So probably if someone is interested to tinker more ahead with it, probably they can go ahead, look at that as well.
sure.
Cool. So
Thanks.
we have covered the process of creating our infrastructure. We have seen how we can see different outputs for ourselves, and now let's come to the part where we just destroy everything. So the cleanup process is fairly simple, right? uh, so now all I need to do is just,
Before destroying, can you give an example like updating any resource?
yeah, cool. I'll do that. So for example, just give me a sec. um, for instance, let's just change the name of this resource. A very simple, or how about let's, I think that might take time. This won't take time. let's just change, make a small change. I'll go ahead and just write Terraform plan again. So now it is going through my current state and it knows as to uh, uh, has there been any change in my current configuration. So now it sees that okay, I need to make a update. So the action that it is going to take really depends on how the resources, the nature of the resource is really is, right. So here what it is going to do, it is going to destroy my previous IP address, and then it is going to create a new one. Obviously, if you dig a bit more, probably you can also stick around with the same IP address if you want. But in our case, since we are going to just make this change on fly, so this is what the default nature of it looks like. So it is going to destroy and then create a replacement for us. Yeah, so it is just going to keep on making some updates. So this is how an update looks like. So we already had this NAT IP provided to us, and the new IP address that we are going to get, we'll be getting to know that after we apply that. So there are certain parameters that can be changed without actually destroying the resource. But in other cases, like if the people at Google have coded it that way, then obviously then that is intended to be done that way. Cool. So let's just Terraform apply again and see how this process goes ahead. For your information, guys, this is a very simple and a small example of things, but the part where it really shines out is if you have a really complex architecture, as I have emphasized before, right? Because you can imagine that you have one person who has been working on an infrastructure and company is totally dependent on that. But one fine day, what happens, he goes on to exploring different opportunities. Then it's not really easy for people to grasp as to what was done beforehand. So Terraform also gives us this really cool facility as to we have everything in front of our eyes. So yeah, so as we can see that it is just going to destroy uh, that resource, and once the destruction is complete, it is going to create. It has also modified our Google Compute instance, like the VM to which the IP address was assigned. And now if we go to this IP address, it works. So we have updated the shown an example of updation. Obviously, as I've told you that these things are still under progress as to probably how the nature of the updation should take place. But yeah, it is still feasible and quite well enhanced in other ways we can do that. The next step that is left is just to destroy your resources. So again, it's fairly simple to destroy everything that you have created. So here we have a command called terraform destroy, and it will just basically go ahead with the resources that you have, and we can just say yes, that destroy everything. One thing I forgot to mention over here is that I'm just going to zoom out a bit. So when we started, you guys must have seen that we really didn't have these files, right? Terraform TF state, Terraform state backup. So this is basically the state of our application. If you go ahead and see, if you want to see, so it has all your resources, bundled out in a JSON format. So that is one more cool thing that you can explore if you want. And let's just wait for this to get over.
And I believe when we apply Terraform,
Shakib, I can't really.
the reach
Jagdeep, your voice
there
is
is a
broke
change
down.
from the plan, right?
Jagdeep, your voice just broke down. I couldn't get you.
Okay, so I think when we let me know if this is better.
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, so when we do Terraform apply, I'm assuming it might be checking from that this cache file that you just showed
Yes.
about the Terraform plan status as well, if there's any change in that or not.
Yes, exactly. Uh, so, as Jagdeep pointed out, it really does references these Terraform files. Uh, okay, I'll discuss a bit more about that. So yeah, as we can see, the resources have been destroyed in the process, right? So we should not see anything regarding that.
One thing more, JD, we can store the state in the database also.
Exactly. So this is what I was going to come next to. So when you let me just clear things out, and then probably we can discuss that. So yeah, up until this point, does anyone have any questions before I move on to a better way to manage your backends or states?
Okay, I'm
Anyone?
good.
Cool. So yeah, Surinder, you were going to ask something?
Yeah, to confirm, like in the destroy command, we opt for destroying all the sources.
Yeah.
So if we have any we have option to destroy a particular source and
Yes.
keep
Yes.
doing it.
So Terraform has a command called Terraform taint. Uh, I'll just show it to you. Right. So Terraform, like if you really want to just destroy a resource, you can just probably uh, comment it out or delete this block itself. So when the next time you apply it, it will automatically get destroyed. But if you want to recreate your resources, then probably you can use taint, which basically just destroys your resource and creates it again. But to the point where you are saying that okay, if you just want to delete a particular resource, then it's best to just even delete this block. So Terraform will automatically know that which resource was deleted, or you can just comment it out.
Right.
Now let me come since I have some time left, I'll just touch on a couple of topics, right? So which I have not covered in this, but I feel that will be really helpful for you guys. Uh, so you can actually use your version controlling system to add one more layer of state management on top of your infrastructure, right? So for example, Surinder pointed out that okay, what if I want to delete a couple of resources, right? So probably we can fork out a new check out a new branch where we do this thing, create do some experiments, and then see how it actually behaves for us. And then probably if it doesn't, then probably we can move on to the main branch that we have, right? So we can use a version control system like Git to manage couple different versions of our infrastructure. There is a concept called workspaces, right? So what workspaces does is it will create multiple replications of your same infrastructure. It is a bit of a advanced topic, but I have added links to my at the end of my site so that you guys can see through that. And the next point that we had to discuss was about states. Yeah. So someone mentioned that can't we just store the state in a database? Well, Terraform has this really cool feature of remote backends. So what it really does is, I'll just rather open it up. Uh, cool. Let's just go ahead with Amazon for time, right? So what we can do, we can specify to Terraform that okay, don't really just store my state in locally, but rather store it in a, let's say, storage bucket. uh, the reason we would like to do that is to maintain a single source of truth, right? So let's say we had three or a bigger team of let's say 5 or 6 people who are continuously working on a single Terraform configuration or a module. Then there are chances that they just might keep on updating things, and the state of our system can change. Therefore it is a very good practice, as to keeping your state saved in a remote environment as an S3 bucket, right? We can also store it in a GCP bucket, and I feel there's this option to even store it in a Postgres database. Yeah, right. So these are all features that probably you guys can use if you get to work on a bigger team who are involved in this development cycle.
Abhijit, can then obviously we can load Terraform structure or infrastructure directly from the save state rather than reading the all the configuration we have written.
Sorry, Surinder, I don't think I got you clearly. Can you please repeat?
Uh, I mean to say like uh, when I have no state, I can create a infrastructure from the configuration. Like if we have already a saved state or a previous state saved anywhere, then I can load the whole infrastructure from that state only without using my current any configuration. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
No, so it's really not okay because Terraform usually goes through your configurations that you have defined for yourself, and then it matches to the state that is given to it, right? There can be, I hope I'm not, yeah. So there can be an instance where you have certain infrastructure that is already deployed on the cloud, and then you want to somehow import it to your state, right? So for example, I had an S3 bucket that was already deployed, and I really don't want to re provision it again. So Terraform has this command called Terraform import. So what Terraform import really does is we still would have to write some configurations around that, but the next time when the Terraform plan or apply is done, so if we would have imported those resources from the cloud platform, we could have just easily when we run the Terraform plan, it will automatically calibrate our current state to the resources that are present in our cloud. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is actually going to be all for this talk. Thank you guys for listening to it. These are certain links that you guys can use, right, to explore more about Terraform. These are two really cool video about Terraform itself, right? These are provided by Gruntwork. I feel like someone really asked me a question about autoscaling, right? So probably he or she can just refer these videos because the CEO of Gruntworks really talks in depth as to why it is very convincing for us to move to Terraform. Like why should we be leaving the orthodox methods that we have been following and move on to a new technology like Terraform. So probably something that I might have missed. You can go ahead and see that for the references. So thank you guys. I am up for questions. Like if anyone has any, uh, that will be all from my side.
Okay, thank you, Abhijit. Guys,
Cool.
you can ask any questions if you have.
Yeah, thanks, Abhijit. This was really a very nice presentation. Like, this is the kind of thing that I was looking forward to, and it's really nice. And can you please also share the link of the presentation, or
Yeah,
just
yeah,
share it on Meetup or
I
somewhere?
already have it in share mode.
Okay,
I,
okay,
Yeah,
great.
this will be like shared in the meetup event in the comment, so all of you can like get it from there as well.
oh yeah, that will be cool, I guess.
Sure.
I'll also leave it over here if someone wants to just straight away go ahead with.
Abhijit, just the question, I guess, because I'm new to Terraform and I have a bit very and very less knowledge about the Docker also. So just want to confirm, like these are the two things, like Docker and Terraform, or can we use Docker in Terraform, or kind of if there is any relation, or we can set up any relation between those two?
Cool. I think it's good that you asked this question. So if we go directly, there is no relation between Terraform and Docker. but we can write certain providers or provisioners for ourselves that can use Docker API, right? So then what we can do is use that, since we have defined a provider for ourselves, right? Then we can write Terraform configurations that can help us interact with the Docker API and create the Docker images or manage Docker. Similarly, we already have a provider for Kubernetes, right? So we can deploy different resources on the Kubernetes cluster itself. So if you go to the provider section, you'll find a Kubernetes provider over there. So Terraform really gives us the facility, to interact with multiple APIs and write providers for ourselves. That can be custom providers. But yeah, obviously Terraform and Docker don't really like have any correlation other than that.
Pintu, can you please mute
Pintu,
your?
Pintu, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
Just give me a second, guys.
Okay, just to confirm and add on to this question, like uh, we have created a virtual instance there. So it can be defined like what operating system or what server we are going to use on that top of that instance in the
Yes,
Terraform.
yes. So when we talk about using a particular operating system, so if you see, since I have some time left, yeah. If you see, I have initialized operating system over here as to what exactly I want to use, right? So it's a very simple Ubuntu 16.04 LTS.
Okay, okay, got
We
that.
can keep on changing that. One more key thing that you might want to use is that probably, let's say you want certain dependencies to be already installed on your OS machine, like or your on your image. So for that, HashiCorp has a different product called Packer, right? So the job of the Packer is just to like install some softwares or manage your image APIs. These image APIs you can use in Terraform to create, provision resources.
Yeah, and to do so, like if I can also use the Docker, I guess Docker is doing the same thing, like managing the all the dependencies to install in your environment or your operating system.
I wouldn't say really that, because what you can do is probably use Packer to install Docker on your virtual machine, then probably run some commands that you want on the virtual machine itself, which can help you provision your Docker uh,
Okay,
ecosystem.
okay, got that. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
Uh, I think we have one more question where Mr. Tolicity is asking what's the difference between Terraform and Google Deployment Manager. So I think we have not so let me be very clear. Google Deployment Manager will just focus on the resources that it is going to create on the GCP, right? We really don't have a scope of going multi-cloud, and I feel Google Deployment Manager does not really give us the flexibility that we have in the Terraform itself. Like there might be features that might be overlapping with Terraform, but there are certain more features that probably Terraform provides us more. But yeah, if your intention is just to have a single resource defined in GCP, then probably yeah, go ahead with Deployment Manager, because that is why they have used it. But we should also keep it in mind that cloud providers like GCP, AWS are itself promoting for Terraform itself, right? So there has to be a good reason as to why that is happening. So that is that. Any more questions, guys?
I think that's it. And
Yeah, I think there is one more question in
oh,
chat. If you scroll down from
Oh
Ishan
yeah,
Mahajan.
there are a lot of questions. Uh, Terraform. So Ishan, there is really like if you are at this very simplistic layout, then please move on to Terraform. Why? Because when your infrastructure will get more complicated, I feel Terraform will really help you out, to scale things in a better way. or at least to visualize it and control your infrastructure. I think I'm clear over here, Ishan, or do you have any doubts regarding that?
Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think Deep also answered your question. So cool. I don't think we have any more questions. So I
So,
think
okay, I have a small request to everyone. So I know I was pretty much excited and about this session, and yes, I genuinely enjoyed it. So maybe if like I know there will be a feedback. We can share feedback about okay how the session was and everything. So it will be great if we can actually spend 10-15 seconds just expressing if someone really enjoyed this topic or they were expecting more. This was less technical, more technical, some immediate feedback that could actually help us, create more DevOps oriented sessions with a different direction if required? Or is this the kind of depth which is adequate for everyone? So we have the audience which we have as of this group of people, 2021 people. If they generally enjoyed it, so it would be good if we can share our feedback like right now. It wouldn't take more than 5 minutes, if or maybe 10 minutes, including everyone. But if we can just have a brief, small snippets for everyone. Maybe I just want to say, Jaspinder or Vikram, you can share a couple of words or lines if you think you see some improvement, something you think was more or less, anything on those lines.
Okay, so I guess from the starting perspective, it was a very nice session. So I mean, couple of things that could be added, like I mean, the question that Surinder asked, like uh, adding the Ubuntu system and those, I guess that were somehow missed, I guess. But Abhijit has already created those configuration already. But it would be great if he can write down all those scripts. I know that it will take a bit longer, but from the starting point, it could make more impact. Rest, I guess, I too enjoy this session, and there was a lot of learning in this.
Thanks, Vikram. Amir, Jaspal, in the dollar, anyone wants to share a few words? That'll be real encouragement for Abhijit and rest of the team as well.
Yeah, I think it's quite a good learnful experience. Like before having this session, I didn't know even T of Terraform. So now I think it's quite good to start with, and I have got very good basic learning, basic knowledge of Terraform, and I'm surely going to explore it more, and it's surely going to help in future. So thank you so much, Abhijit. It was really nice.
you're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also encourage everyone, please go to Twitter and just if you like the session, just appreciate our developer. So I shared our DevTalks Twitter handle over there, and Abhijit, you can also share your Twitter handle. So guys,
Sure.
please, yeah, just go there and share some appreciation over there as well.
Sure, sir.
Also, guys, please feel free to reach out to me like anytime that you want. I am just going to share my email address again. It is already present on the slides, but yeah.
Yeah, and also we Rishabh also created a poll yesterday regarding our next topic for next meetup. So that is also in our DevTalks channel. So you guys can give your vote for that. And if the topic that you want us to cover in next session is not listed over there, you can just create a thread over there, so that we can see we can find out what topics you want us to cover, so we can prepare accordingly.
Sure, Sarab. Thanks.
Yeah, Abhijit, can you also share your Twitter handler?
Yeah, I'll just do that. Just give me a sec, please. I really don't use. Yeah, it's
And one more thing I just want to add, that this DevTalks platform is like made by the community only, and we encourage all of you also, if you want to if you guys have some topic to speak, so we also recommend you guys to please you can come over to our platform and you can also give a talk. So for example, like Abhijit also giving his first talk on our platform. So we are really welcoming first time speakers as well. So you all guys are welcome. So if you want to give us a talk, so just like DM us on Twitter with your topic, whatever you want to give. So we will consider that for next topics as well.
Thanks, Sarab. Thanks, Abhijit. This was a rocking session, and thanks everyone for being available. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks guys
Thank
for
you.
having me here.
Thank you, Abhijit.
You're welcome, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye bye. Thanks, guys. Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Bye everyone.